Hey sisterhood, it is just Kristen here having this conversation with you guys, and we're just gonna have a little girl chat about sex because this is something we need to talk about as Christian girls, Christian women, whether you're single or married. And having been married for 10 years now, I look back on my perspective and my thoughts about sex before I got married. I made the decision to save sex till marriage, to not have sex until I was married. And looking back, I can see some perspectives and mindsets that I had early on, even before marriage, that I don't think were really helpful in going into marriage. And I'm going to share those with you. And if you're not married, you are going to want to stick around for this. And if you are married, I bet you can relate to me on a lot of these things. So stick around because I want to hear your feedback too. I want to say a quick shout out to all of you who support us on patreon.com. That was a drum roll, because you guys are the backbone of Girl Defined. Your support, even if you're like, I only give $2 or $3 a month, it makes a difference when the sisterhood collectively comes together and links arms with us. We see every single one of you, new patrons, old patrons, faithful supporters, new supporters. And as a small token of our thanks for your support, we create free monthly products exclusively for you guys. So for example, this is one of our most recent PDF. They're all downloads, so you can get them instantly. How to Discern a Guy's True Character, a simple, practical, and biblical guide. Just really helpful things to think through. In fact, one of the dads that I know recently downloaded it and was like, oh, this is a great guide to use for, like, I guess he's evaluating guys that are getting to know his young daughters. And so, I'm like, okay, we're helping the dads out, I guess. Another one, 50 questions to deepen your friendships. Really great questions. I use those myself in my friendships and they've been amazing. Set My Heart, a 7-day devotional for drawing close to Jesus. Just a beautiful, look, it's like beautiful devotional. It's kind of hard to see. And then another one, 5 strategies for thriving as a single girl for all of our single sisters. These are guides that you can download, use for yourself, use as you're mentoring someone, use in a relationship, a romantic relationship or a friendship. So these are all available for you, the past and the future ones, if you become a Patreon supporter over at patreon.com/girldefined. I am also beyond excited about probably my favorite book to date, which is Not Part of the Plan, Trusting God with the Twists and Turns of Your Story. I wrote this book along with my sister Bethany, and it releases October 12th, 2021, but available for pre-order everywhere right now. Amazon, on our website, girldefined.com/shop. The reason it's probably my favorite is because it is the most personal, the most candid, the most transparent, intimate, honest, intimate book of all the books that we've written. We share our own hearts, our failures, our dashed dreams and hopes, prayers that we felt like went unanswered, ways we wrestled and struggled with our own relationship with God through each of our journeys, hers in singleness, mine with infertility, recurrent miscarriage, and just how do you trust God when life doesn't turn out the way you expected? If you're walking through something, if you just feel like you're trapped in worry and fear, if you feel like you don't really know how to trust God, if you just need some good laughs, if you want to feel like you've got a community, a sisterhood, this book will give you that, all the feels. I think you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll be so encouraged in your walk with God. So it's really a book about our journeys and your journey, us as the sisterhood, as we walk these paths that God has for us. How do we trust Him with the twists and turns of each of our stories? So I hope you'll grab a copy. I think you'll find it super, super encouraging. Okay, back to the topic of sex and intimacy, really. So like I said, Zach and I have been married for 10 years. We were both virgins on our wedding night. And so it was very exciting, but very fresh and new. And neither of us knew at all what we were doing, but we had a great time and we've had 10 years to learn. So I would say we're pretty advanced now, 10 years later. But looking back, there are some things that I'm like, I wish I knew this 10 years ago. And I'm sure 10 years from now, I'll look back and I'll be like, I wish I knew that 10 years ago. And it's going to be that way till we die, right? But today, it's been 10 years of marriage, and there are definitely 3 specific things that came to mind when I was thinking of this that I wish I knew. And so I hope this is helpful for you. If you're early stages of marriage, if you're single, if you're young, it's so good for us as Christian women to have these conversations because the world has them all the time, and we need to be talking about these. We need to be encouraging each other in things that impact our lives in really deep and profound ways. Okay, so the first thing is that before we were married, we were really seeking to honor God in our sexuality and just look to His word to guide us in in sex, right? And basically what I'm saying is that in God's word, we see sex placed inside the covenant of marriage. And so we were committed to that, to enjoying sex within the covenant of marriage only. And so, like I said, we were virgins on our wedding day, and we read a lot of books leading up to that. And like each of us just separately, and then as a part of our pre-marriage counseling, one of the topics was sex. And it was really helpful to have counsel from a wise married couple speaking into our lives. But what we noticed on the other side of marriage is that so many of the wonderful resources, which they are, and I'm not discouraging growing through helpful biblical resources, is that oftentimes there would be certain stereotypes, right, for the man or the woman regarding sexual intimacy within marriage, and certain labels that would be put on, like, oh, typically this is for a man or this is for a woman, or the struggles. And so you mentally start forming a box of like, okay, so expectations, like I should expect this or not expect that, or I might struggle in this way but maybe not that way, or this is kind of how men and women think. And what we realized after marriage is that you really can't, like, yeah, stereotypes are stereotypes because it represents like a large group of people, but you know, every couple is so different. And as I've talked to married women over the past 10 years, they're like, yeah, that was not a struggle for us at all, or this was one and we weren't expecting it because no one really talked about it, or whatever. And Zach and I encountered those things ourselves, and we just felt like before marriage, embracing stereotypes and kind of envisioning like, okay, those are the ways that we're going to struggle, or the challenges we're going to face, or the expectations we should have. I don't feel like for us that was very helpful, because we did not fall into all of the stereotypes. And it was hard because it was almost like having to get outside of the box and then really try to grow from that point on. And so I would just say, be like, yes, dig into the resources, grow biblically in your understanding, but keep an open mind and know that you are both two unique, different people, and the struggles that you encounter are going to vary outside of the resources that you encounter. And so don't lock your perspective in that box, but, you know, keep an open mind and really trust the Lord and seek his wisdom, and keep that open communication between you and your husband every step of the way. And I think that will help you to overcome the challenges quicker, to not get so discouraged because you're like, oh no, we have this struggle, but no one else does. Like, yes, a lot of other people do. It just may not fit the stereotype, right? And so keep that open mind and keep that unity, that conversation going, and try to not box yourself in too early. So that was one thing. I know that might have been a little confusing, but just thinking back, I'm like, yeah, some of the stereotypes weren't helpful for us as we encountered certain challenges. Okay, this is the other thing, is that I think there's two ditches that we can fall into as Christian women based on our past. So for me, the ditch I fell into was, okay, I'm waiting to have sex until I'm married. I'm a virgin. And so it's just going to be like awesome and epic because I've waited. And we're not really going to encounter a lot of challenges. Like, that was my mindset, whether I realized it or not. And I think women who are Christians getting married who've had sex in the past might fall into the other ditch, which is like, oh, well, since I've had it and I see in God's word, like, okay, that's not the best. He calls us to enjoy sex in marriage only. We're going to encounter all of these different challenges, or maybe it's not going to be awesome because of that. And so both of us go into marriage with these perspectives, and I don't think either one are right, because I did encounter a lot of challenges. We did both as virgins, and I think in some ways it was like, oh, like, no, this should be perfect and awesome in every way because we've waited. And God just really had to grow us in that, and to show us like every part of life has challenges, no matter what your history is, and each might be different. But the thing that I want to say that I wish I had known is that, and it's something that like not a lot of Christians talk about. My good friend, Dr. Julie Slattery over at Authentic Intimacy talks about this all the time, and she's amazing and has been such a huge resource in my own heart and life regarding sexual intimacy and marriage. But the thing is that regardless of where you're coming from, we all need sexual discipleship in our marriage, even before marriage. And what I mean by sexual discipleship is, you know, as women, we get a lot of discipleship in our relationship with God, in our prayer life, and overcoming specific challenges like worry or fear or anxiety, or growing in certain biblical principles. But so often the area of sex and intimacy, we don't get any discipleship in. And so whether we're coming into marriage as a virgin, or we're coming into marriage having had a lot of past sexual encounters, and we feel like we have regrets, or we feel like things should be perfect, we go into marriage and then we receive no discipleship on the other side of marriage regarding sexual intimacy. And we're just left to like figure things out on our own. And it's so hard. And what Dr. Julie Slattery has encouraged me in and what she's encouraged so many women in is we need to be sexually discipled, just like every other area of our lives as Christian women. Sex is a very spiritual reality too. It's like sex points to something. It's a metaphor that points to a deep relationship that God desires to have with us. Like it's so much more than just what it seems on the surface. But there are very real challenges and things that we face. And regardless of which direction, which path we came from into our marriage, we need sexual discipleship. And so that is something that I wish that I had, that Zach and I early on had pursued more. And I think that leads right into my last thing. What I wish we had done is I wish that we had a godly couple that we had asked before we were married, a godly couple that we trust and know and had a relationship with, to not just do pre-marriage counseling, but a couple on the other side of marriage who could specifically walk with us, like mentor us as a young married couple and walk with us through all issues of marriage, but specifically, I think discipling us and helping us grow in our sexual relationship, and a couple where we could be vulnerable and transparent and say, we're encountering these struggles, or we didn't expect this, or, how do we make this awesome? Like, how do we love each other well in this, like in the bedroom? Just those candid, honest conversations with another godly Christian couple. I think that would have truly been so impactful for us. And so that is what I encourage you to. But the third thing, so one is that stereotypes aren't always helpful. Two, whether you're a virgin or not, sexual discipleship is a must going into marriage. And then the last thing is that I've learned over these past 10 years, what I wish I knew, is that truly we can live without sex. A lot of people don't get married who are Christians and they stay faithful in that journey and they don't ever have sex and they are just fine. I'm not saying it's not hard. Totally. I know there are a lot of struggles in that, but we can live without sex, but we can't live without intimacy. And if you're wondering what in the world that means, Bethany and I did a video recently with that exact title. You can live without sex, but you can't live without intimacy. We take a deep dive into that topic also in our book, Sex, Purity, and the Longings of a Girl's Heart. We dig into this as well for single and married women, like sex isn't the end all be all, and how do we have a biblical perspective on it. And so basically what I'm saying is that when I got married, especially having waited until marriage to experience sex, I think there was this perspective like it was going to fill this part of my life and my heart and pleasure in a way that nothing else does, which it is a very unique, beautiful experience, a celebration within marriage, and it's awesome. But I think I had placed it on a pedestal that wasn't healthy. Like it was going to in some way complete me or be the thing that I never had. And now I'm going to be totally satisfied in every way. And what I realized is that the true need of my heart, even more than a sexual experience, or more than deep sexual relationship with my husband, is I need intimacy even more than that. First and foremost in my relationship with God, because that is where that hole that we might feel in our hearts, the true longing, the true need of our heart is to walk in a right relationship with our Creator. He's the one who made us, and we will only truly be satisfied when we're walking in that intimate relationship that God designed us to have with Him. No husband, no boyfriend, no amount of money, wealth, sex can fill what God only created us to find in Him. That's why you have so many celebrities, people with a lot of money, access to whatever they want, and they're still searching. They're still trying to find that answer because it can only be found in our relationship with God. So looking back, I realized my greatest need, it isn't sex. My greatest need is intimacy, first and foremost with God, and then second with my husband, because a really good sex life in marriage doesn't just come from having really good physical sex, but from cultivating a relationship that is intimate relationally, intimate spiritually, intimate on every level, where you have a deep friendship and you share your heart. You're so vulnerable. You're so transparent. There's trust. There's integrity in the relationship. And out of that intimacy, that's the most beautiful foundation for then sex to thrive, because it's an expression of the intimacy that you share as a married couple. So first and foremost, sex isn't our greatest need. And that is something I've seen over and over again, that my relationship with God satisfies me more than anything else. And that true intimacy is cultivated in my relationship with my husband and then expressed in the beautiful, intimate act of sexual oneness. So I would love to hear from you. comment over on Instagram at Girl Defined. Grab a copy of Sex, Purity, and the Longings of a Girl's Heart to grow in your understanding of biblical sexuality, of true intimacy, of the real needs of your heart. I think that will set you up to go into marriage, if God has that for you, with the right frame of mind. And then also, just one last reminder, Not Part of the Plan is available for pre-order everywhere, and I cannot wait to walk this journey with you through this book. Grab it over at girldefined.com/shop. I love you guys so much, and I will see you next time.